Consignment हम मेरा सीरीज का सबसे सबसे important नहीं, we can't say that because partnership is also very important. But again, one of the chapter which you will always find in your CA foundation paper. You'll hardly come across a paper of CA foundation where consignment chapter pe they have not asked a question. 8 to 10 marks, sometimes 12 marks. Hmm. They can ask you journal entries or and ledger accounts. पहले ये समझ लो. So it could be only journal entries, or it could be journal entries and ledger accounts, or it could be only ledger accounts. Apart from that, accounting can be in the books of consignor, and accounting can be in the books of consignee. Accounting it can be journal भी हो सकता है, ledger भी हो सकता है, but again that is again divided into two parts. Consignor, who is the owner, and consignee, who is the agent. So as a student, when you start consignment or you come across a consignment problem, you have to be clear with these things first. पूछा क्या है, जर्नल पूछा है कि लेजर पूछा है, जर्नल किसके बुक्स में पूछा, लेजर अगर पोस्टिंग करना है किसके बुक्स में, दोनों पार्टी के बुक्स में कि किसी एक पार्टी में. दैट शुड गिव लॉट ऑफ क्लैरिटी टू योर methods to, not methods but to steps that you will undertake to complete the problem. So this was first point, that in consignment it is most important. Yes, owner, that is Mr. Consigner, will prepare 100% consignment account, which is a nominal account. He will also prepare consignees account, which is agents account, and I will also prepare goods sent on consignment account. So if they specify that in the books of consignor prepare only consignment account and consignees account, then there is no need to prepare goods sent on consignment account. Or if they say prepare necessary accounts in the books of consignor, yes, you'll have to prepare consignment account, consignees account, and goods sent on consignment account. All the three accounts must appear. This consignment account will give you consignment profit or loss. So this account will disclose profit or loss of consignment business. So even if you are asked to pass journal entries in the books of consignor, you will have to prepare consignment account in T form. क्यों? अरे जब तक हम कंसाइनमेंट अकाउंट नहीं बनाएंगे, we will not come to know the profit or loss suffered by consignment business. Also, only journal entries are asked. We'll have to prepare consignees account in T form because we will like to know the amount payable, receivable. So obviously receivable from the consignee, which we will receive, and then only his account will be settled. Goods sent on consignment account is a temporary account. Anyways, it represents goods gone out other than sales. So we close this and we transfer it to trading account. You know it very well. So even if you don't prepare this account, unless asked, it's okay. So जब जर्नल पूछा है तो टी फॉर्म में गुड सेंट ऑन कंसिग्नमेंट अकाउंट बनाने का टाइम पास करने की जरूरत नहीं है. नेसेसरी अकाउंट्स बोला होगा, बनाना पड़ेगा. If they say prepare ledger accounts in the books of consignor, but they specify that prepare only consignment account and consignees account, obviously you will not prepare this account. Am I very loud and clear about what I have announced? Now, in the books of consignee, this was all in the books of consignor owner. Now in the books of agent. Number one, we will prepare consignor's account to know how much is payable to consignor eventually at the end of consignment. If they have given you details about credit sales, etc., then we may prepare debtor's account also. Compulsory to prepare consignor's account, debtor's account. Necessary बोला होगा तो it may not, you may not prepare. क्या necessary बोला होगा तो we will prepare. Necessary बोला तो we will prepare. Just they specify prepare consignor's account, then we will prepare only consignor's account. Is that clear? Well, this account would tell us the final amount which is payable to consignor. It will be always payable to consignor because we have sold his goods and collected money, either cash sales or amount collected from debtors. From that, we are going to deduct 1 hour expenses, 2 hour commission, and remit the balance amount to consignor. So it will be always payable, which we will pay. Debtors account में goods sold on credit will be debited, then amount recovered will be credited. If there is a closing balance, we'll write as closing balance. If there are bad debts, we will credit debtors, etc. So this is typically debtors account. अब सवाल ये है, what are the key points in consignment chapter? After deciding accounting किसके बुक्स में है और क्या बनाना है, जर्नल है कि लेजर है, सिर्फ जर्नल है तो भी टी फॉर्म में क्या बनाना है, ये सब एनालाइज करने के बाद बिफोर यू स्टार्ट कंसाइनमेंट चैप्टर यू मस्ट बी क्लियर, यू मस्ट बी मतलब मस्ट बी क्लियर whether the goods sent on consignment are at cost price or at invoice price. You have to have clarity. If the goods are dispatched at cost, then no special accounting is required. But if goods are dispatched at invoice price, then in the books of consignor, every time after you record the invoice price, you will have to reverse the loading element to eventually get cost. So by chance, you take it casually and you don't give any damn importance to that the goods are being dispatched at invoice price and keep on solving the problem. It's a waste of time. Criminal waste of time, in fact. So you have to make sure, you have to really, really make sure that you are clear before starting the problem. Whether goods are dispatched at cost or at invoice price. Cost for consignor, invoice price also for consignor. So, sir, goods are dispatched at cost, so there is no problem. But if goods are dispatched at invoice price, there is problem. No, no, problem नहीं है, उसको adjust करना पड़ेगा. So, क्या क्या जगह पे goods sent on consignment. So, goods rejected by consignee. 3. Consignment stock opening and closing is also at invoice price. अगर ये होगा तो हमको हर बार लोडिंग को रिवर्स करना पड़ेगा. So when goods are sent on consignment, we will be passing 2 entries. When goods are rejected by consignee, we will be passing the 2 entries. When we are recording opening stock, we will pass 2 entries. And when we are recording closing stock, we will pass 2 entries. So what entries we will pass when goods are sent on consignment? First, we will pass the entry consignment account debit to goods sent on consignment account at invoice price. Then to reverse the loading element in consignment account, immediately I will pass the entry goods sent on consignment account debit to consignment. So you better understand one thing. In your consignment account, when you have dispatched the goods, this is my consignment account. The invoice price did appear on the credit side, but immediately I have recorded the loading element on the credit side. Invoice price debit side, loading element credit side. We eventually get cost. This has to be done on the spot immediately. When goods are rejected by consignee and send it back to consignor, we will credit consignment account at invoice price and we will reverse the loading element on the debit side. So invoice price credit side, loading element debit side, we will eventually get cost. So what entry will pass when goods are rejected by consignee and sent back to consignor? In the books of consignor only I'm addressing, so I'm not talking about consignee at all. So consignor will pass the entry, goods sent on consignment account debit to consignment account at invoice price, and then immediately we will reverse the loading element, consignment account debit to goods sent on consignment account loading. So invoice price on the credit side, loading element debit side, we will get cost. Am I very clear? Am I very clear? Now consignment opening stock. So for consignment opening stock, my first entry is consignment account debit to consignment opening stock account. This is at which price? Invoice price. So immediately we'll reverse the loading element by passing what entry? Stock reserve account debit. Consignment account. This is loading. In case of closing stock, it is consignment account debit. Consignment stock account debit. And if you see all the four places, if invoice price appears on the debit side, loading element has to come on the credit side. If invoice price comes on the credit side, loading element has to come on the debit side. That's why we always reverse the loading element. So if invoice price will appear on the debit side, loading has to come on the credit side. If invoice price comes on the credit side, loading element has to come on the debit side. Invoice debit, loading credit, invoice debit to get cost. Last में मैंने 1,000 times I made you repeat this, but this is the most important thing and nobody will give you instructions for that. The moment you write invoice price on the debit side of any account, loading element has to come on the credit side of the same account to get cost. And the moment you record invoice price on the credit side of any account, the loading has to come on the debit side of the same account to get cost. So invoice price debit side, loading element credit side, loading element credit side, invoice price debit side, invoice price credit side, loading element debit side, loading element debit side, invoice price credit side to get cost. ये एपिसोड कंप्लीट होने के बाद आपका हर एक प्रॉब्लम में सबसे बड़ा एपिसोड आता है वैल्यूएशन ऑफ consignment stock. This should be at cost, but at time it is at Invoice price. So how do we start the problem? We are not starting the problem. We have started the problem long time back. How we start this working? So there are three things: purchase price or invoice price of goods dispatched. We add proportionate expenses paid by consigner. Add proportionate paid by consignee. अब तुम बोलोगे सर आपने दोनों जगह पे लिखा प्रपोर्शनल एक्सपेंसेस पेड बाय कंसाइनर, इधर लिखा प्रपोर्शनल एक्सपेंसेस पेड बाय कंसाइनी, तो विच एक्सपेंसेस? ऑलवेज नॉन रिकरिंग. फॉर एग्जाम्पल नॉन रिकरिंग का मतलब यहाँ पे which will occur only when goods are dispatched. So non-recurring expenses are the expenses which are incurred either by consignor or by consignee for taking the delivery of the goods and carrying the goods to the place of sales. यहाँ पे for God's sake understand, if the goods have been dispatched from Mumbai to Pune, here we are not talking about cost of goods in Mumbai, we are talking about cost of goods in Pune which remain unsold with your agent. तो मुंबई टू पुणे गुड्स हवा में उड़ के नहीं जाएंगे, हनुमान जी लेके नहीं जाएंगे. तो यहां से गुड्स हमको रवाना करने हैं तो उसका पैकिंग होना चाहिए, उसका इंश्योरेंस होना चाहिए, उसका ट्रांसपोर्ट का चार्जेस होना चाहिए, उसका लोडिंग होना चाहिए, उसका अनलोडिंग होना चाहिए, सिमिलरली उधर वापस अनलोडिंग होना चाहिए. So what is my cost in Mumbai may not remain my cost in Pune because I have to incur further extra expenditure, which is my consignment business expenditure. वो जो एक्स्ट्रा एक्सपेंडिचर इंकर करूंगा टिल द टाइम ऑफ सेल वो सब मैं ऐड नहीं करने वाला हूं. आई एम एडिंग ओनली दोज एक्सपेंसेस विच आर इंकर बाय कंसाइनर और कंसाइनी फॉर टेकिंग द डिलीवरी ऑफ द गुड्स and carrying it to the place of sales. That is what I call it as non-recurring expenditure. Hello. Mr. Consigner will land up paying always non-recurring. But as far as Mr. Consignee is concerned, he may land up paying for non-recurring also and recurring also. For example, he may arrange a local transport guy who will take the delivery from highway and get the goods inside the city. तो वो लोकल ट्रांसपोर्ट जो है उसका पेमेंट कौन करेगा? कंसाइनी. उसको अरेंज करेगा कौन? कंसाइनी. इट इज नॉट कंसाइनीज बिजनेस एक्सपेंडिचर, it is consignment business expenditure. We are matured enough to understand that. So we are not having a discussion whether it is a consignee's expenses or not. That is not a question. But is it not an expenditure incurred by consignee for taking the delivery and carrying it to a place of sale, that is his shop? Yes. He may pay loading charges. He may pay unloading charges. So remember, as far as consignee is concerned, he may pay non-recurring expenses also, recurring expenses also. Whether it is non-recurring expenditure or recurring expenditure, both are consignment business only. So whether it will be debited to consignment account, of course, yes. But are we discussing about consignment profit or loss, or we are talking about cost of consignment stock? Cost of consignment stock. तो cost of consignment stock में सिर्फ और सिर्फ वही एक्सपेंसेस ऐड होंगे कंसाइनी ने जो पे किए for taking the delivery of the goods and carrying the goods to the place of sale. That's why we call it as non-recurring. So please don't make it complicated when it is not. It is purchase price or invoice price of the goods that you have dispatched of the unsold portion, naturally. Then proportionate expenses paid by consignor, understood, implied that they are non-recurring only. And for consignee, only non-recurring expenses paid by consignee will be added, of course, proportionately, and that is how we will get the stock. Now, again, concentrate. ये तीन फैक्टर्स जो है ना, सपोज गुड्स आर डिस्पैच नॉट एट कॉस्ट बट गुड्स आर डिस्पैच एट इनवॉइस प्राइस. So here I have started with invoice price. So this includes loading. This figure does not include loading. And this figure also does not include loading. क्यों? These are the actual expenses paid by consignor और consignee, तो इसमें loading कहाँ से है? However, ये समझो A है, ये B है और ये C है. ये ABC का टोटल है. इसमें A इंक्लूडेड है. So this figure includes loading. क्या होता है ना? Sometimes they give you a percentage, 25% on invoice price. So you should have the maturity to calculate loading, not as 25% of this figure, but 25% of only this figure. क्यों? A, B और C में B और C is at cost only. अगर आपने 25% of ABC ले लिया, then you are saying that B and C also includes loading, and B and C does not include single rupee loading. It is proportionate actual expenses paid by consignor and consignee for taking the delivery of the goods and carrying the goods to the place of sales. Boom, 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 Charni. So when it is actual proportionate expenses paid by consignor as well as consignee for taking the delivery of the goods and carrying the goods to the place of sales, it is actual expenditure incurred. Actual expenditure incurred. It can never, ever, 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 ever include loading. Loading will be part of invoice price. Hence, A includes loading? Yes. ABC के total में A included है? Yes. So, overall consignment stock and invoice price includes loading? Yes. But will you take 25% if the loading is, let us say, 25% of invoice price? Will you take 25% of ABC? No. You'll take 25% of only A. This is when percentage information is given when it is already per unit. जैसे he will tell you loading is 50 rupees per unit. Then इतना मगजमारी करने की भी जरूरत नहीं है. Whatever is the consignment stock unsold in number of units multiply by 50 rupees per unit, he will give you loading. ठीक છે? Okay. नुस्खा अपना फेवरेट. Valuation of abnormal loss. And this will be always at bull cost. बिफोर वी स्टार्ट एबनॉर्मल लॉस एट कॉस्ट का वैल्यूएशन एक जमाने में हमने ये डिस्कशन किया था कि व्हाट इज एबनॉर्मल लॉस एंड व्हाट इज नॉर्मल लॉस. तो भाइयों और बहनों, कोई भी लॉस हमेशा एबनॉर्मल ही होता है. नॉर्मल लॉस अगर होगा तो एग्जामिनेशन हॉल में दे विल स्पेसिफिकली मेंशन दैट इट इज अ नॉर्मल लॉस. दिस आई एम स्पीकिंग ओनली फ्रॉम एग्जामिनेशन पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. कॉन्सेप्ट विंसेप्ट 2 मिनट के लिए बाजू में रखो. कौन सा लॉस एबनॉर्मल है और कौन सा लॉस एबनॉर्मल है, इसके बारे में इंस्ट्रक्शंस दिए होंगे. If it is normal, if it is not given that this particular loss is normal, then it is always to be treated as abnormal. So, sir, what is normal loss? Normal loss is an expected loss. It is unavoidable loss. So, we will always be given instructions. As an accountant, I am nobody to decide that falana falana quantity ज़्यादा है मतलब वो abnormal है और falana falana quantity कम है वो normal है. I am nobody to anticipate such things. You will be always given instructions. Based on those instructions, you will decide whether it is normal or abnormal. No, no, no. I make it very clear. If it is normal loss, they will specify it is normal loss. If they have not mentioned that the loss suffered by you is normal, then that loss is always abnormal. Sir, एक बार आप बोलते हो instructions will be given. Yes, for instructions will be given only for normal loss. Instructions will not be given to specify it is abnormal loss. So, if it is a consignment problem, and if they have discussed about loss suffered during the consignment business, and they have not specified that it is normal, then it is always. It is normal only when they give you instructions. Am I very loud and clear? No homemade debitation. Huh? Quantity ज़्यादा तो abnormal loss. Quantity कम तो normal loss. Walla re walla. Chal food. ऐसा सिस्टम नहीं है। ओके सर, वी नो दैट, आपने बहुत बार क्लास में भी ये पॉइंट रिपीट किया। या इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट एंड आई एम रिपीटिंग इट बिफोर आई प्रोसीड। या व्हाट, will you treat any loss as normal unless you're given instructions? No. Loss will be normal loss only when it is given. And if it's not given that the loss suffered by you is normal loss, then it is always everybody. Move your body, na idiot. It is always abnormal loss. इतना समझाने के बाद भी अगर तुम कुंचम पुंचम करते हो तो मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता। गॉड इज ग्रेट। Abnormal loss में whether goods are dispatched at invoice price or at cost price, we will always record it at cost because we are recording our loss. Our loss cannot be recorded at invoice price, that is at a profit. So we will always start with purchase price of goods. Lost. Add. Proportionate. Huh? Expenses paid by consignor. Sir, आपने लिखा नहीं non recurring. Exactly. It is understood implied that whatever consignor pays is always non recurring. Add. Proportionate expenses paid by consignee. सर आपने इधर स्पेसिफाई नहीं किया, मैं कर रहा हूं ना स्पेसिफाई दोनों के लिए। ऑलवेज ऑलवेज बोलो नॉन रिकरिंग। And that's how you will get what? Abnormal loss at cost. कुछ तो समझो ना, भी सब कुछ समझ गए। भी तुम बोलोगे सर ये जो प्रपोर्शनल एक्सपेंसेस पेड बाय कंसाइनी है वो हमेशा ऐड करने हैं कि ओनली इफ इट इज इनकर्ड? ओनली इफ इट इज इनकर्ड। सर व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय ओनली इफ इट इज इनकर्ड? If the goods are dispatched by consignor to consignee, and before consignee took the delivery of the goods, those goods were damaged, lost, blah, 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 then consignee will not land up paying on those goods. Whether he has paid recurring and non-recurring, वो मुद्दा अलग ही है, but consignee will never pay on those goods which are lost before he took the delivery. तो सर इनको कैसे पता चलेगा कि whether they are incurred or not? You read English language. There will be enough information available to you. Okay, by this loss you have suffered much before the consignee took the delivery. Then you are not going to add. That's obvious. So ये हर प्रॉब्लम की मेरिट पे है, इंस्ट्रक्शंस पे है, इसका कोई कानून नहीं बना सकते हो। मैंने यहाँ पे स्टार मार्क किया इफ इनकर्ड बिकॉज आई वांट टू मेक यू रियलाइज दैट एवरी टाइम ही मे नॉट इनकर ऑन दिस क्वांटिटी। मतलब सर क्या बोल रहे हो, कंसाइनी का नॉन रिकरिंग एक्सपेंसेस ही नहीं होगा? नए मलयालम में मैं समझा रहा हूँ, तमिल में समझा रहा हूँ, मराठी में समझा रहा हूँ, हिंदी में समझा रहा हूँ, हिंदी 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 समझा रहा हूँ। I don't want any confusion. I want to make it very, very clear. I, as a consignee, may pay non-recurring expenses for taking the delivery of the goods and carrying it to the place of sales. Let us say 100 TV sets were dispatched by consignor to consignee. 5 TV sets were robbed. So consignee took the delivery only of 95 TV sets. That means whatever non-recurring expenses he has incurred, it was only on 95 TV sets. And I am trying to find out the cost of the 5 TV sets which are robbed before consignee took the delivery. So before the delivery, only those 5 pieces were lost, robbed. Consignee spend money only on 95. तो जब ये 5 का कॉस्ट आप कैलकुलेट कर रहे हैं तो क्या आप नॉन रिकरिंग एक्सपेंसेस कंसाइनी के ऐड करेंगे? आंसर इज नो। क्या आप इसके लिए ऐड नहीं कर रहे हो क्योंकि कंसाइनी ने कोई भी नॉन रिकरिंग एक्सपेंडिचर खर्चा नहीं किया? नहीं 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 नहीं, कंसर्नी ने नॉन रिकरिंग एक्सपेंडिचर खर्चा किया है, दैट मींस ही हैज इनकर्ड नॉन रिकरिंग expenses, but he has incurred non recurring expenses on 95 TV sets which he has received, and not on those 5 TV sets which he could not receive because they were robbed before he took the delivery. Acha, this loss is treated as not a consignment business loss because every time you dispatch the goods, you will not suffer this loss. Correct? So this was avoidable loss. Unfortunately, we could not avoid it and we have suffered, but then it was not a loss which was anticipated. It was not a loss which is estimated. It was not a loss which was unavoidable. It was avoidable. So we don't treat it as consignment business loss. So we pass the entry abnormal loss account debit to consignment account. क्यों ये एंट्री पास करते हैं? एज डिस्कस इट इज नॉट ट्रीटेड एज कंसाइनमेंट बिजनेस लॉस. इसकी जो भी कॉस्ट आपने ऊपर कैलकुलेट की है वो कंसाइनमेंट अकाउंट में डेबिट साइड इज ऑलरेडी वेरी मच अपीयरिंग. Nothing will be there in the selling price because these goods are not sold, and this is not also for the part of consignment stock now. So cost will only appear on the debit side. Nothing will be there on the credit side. Then it will become automatically consignment business loss, and it is not to be treated as a consignment business loss. So therefore, to reverse the cost, we credit consignment account and debit abnormal loss account. अब इसके सामने बैंक अकाउंट डेबिट, इंश्योरेंस क्लेम रिसीव और इंश्योरेंस क्लेम अकाउंट डेबिट, इंश्योरेंस क्लेम रिसीवेबल, या कैश अकाउंट डेबिट, SCRAP, scrap amount to what? Normal loss account at cost. और जो बीच में डिफरेंस आएगा वो आपका लॉस है. सो दैट विल बी डेबिट टू जनरल प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट. इट्स अ loss. Just to make you understand, if the value of consignment stock, that is cost price of the consignment stock है ना, not consignment stock, sorry, value or cost of abnormal loss is 5,500. We managed to get from the insurance company 5,000 and 200 we got it as scrap. So 5,200 ka recovery against loss of 5,500. So we have suffered a loss of 300 which is debited to general P&L. Whatever I could cover up conceptually for abnormal loss, I've covered up. Right? Now, नॉर्मल लॉस. एक स्टूपिड मेंटालिटी आपकी डेवलप हो जाती है. लॉस क्वांटिटी कम होगी तो नॉर्मल, क्वांटिटी ज्यादा होगी तो एबनॉर्मल. नो वे. एनी लॉस इज नॉर्मल. Any loss is normal only when instructions are given. Once instructions are given that particular loss is normal, I am not worried. Nor I have to do any special accounting for this. सर आप क्या बोल रहे हो? जो तू सुन रहे हो वो नॉर्मल लॉस है, मतलब इट इज एस्टिमेटेड लॉस है ना. whenever you're doing business or consignment, this loss you will suffer. It is unavoidable. It is part of your consignment stock का कॉस्ट. अगर तुम 200 यूनिट भेजोगे ना तो 200 में से 5 यूनिट हमेशा लॉस्ट हो जाएंगे, तो 195 ही पहुंचेंगे. यानी आपने बाय किए 200 बट यू विल ट्रीट इट एज कॉस्ट 195. कॉस्ट पर यूनिट विल इंक्रीज. दैट विल अफेक्ट योर वैल्यूएशन ऑफ कंसाइनमेंट स्टॉक. गॉट इट? सो प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, इफ इट इज नॉर्मल लॉस आपको ढूंढना नहीं है. It will be mentioned and you don't have to pass any entry for normal loss. But will it have an impact on your consignment stock? Yes. So basically जब आप consignment stock calculate करेंगे when there is normal loss, you consider purchase price, then you add proportionate expenses paid by consignor, then you add proportionate non-recurring expenses paid by consignee. Normally this could have been the cost of 200 units. because you have dispatched 200 units. But now you'll not add this and treat as cost of 200 units. You'll always treat this as a cost of 195 units because you know that even if you have dispatched 200, 5 will always get lost. So that cannot be avoided. So even if you have bought 200, even if you have dispatched 200, you will treat that cost as 195 units. And this is how you will calculate cost per unit. So let us say out of 195, 100 units are sold by consignee. So he is left with 95. आपका जो पहले का cost होगा. Shall I make you understand this? Look, let us say the total cost is 39,000. Please concentrate. If I have dispatched 200 kgs, normally I would have divided this 39,000 by 200. Hello. So if I divide 39,000, calculators, by 200, I can't show this calculation to you, although by 200, you get 19,500. At least. बराबर है 39,000 divided by 200 kgs, right? So you get not 19,500, you get 195 as what? 195 as what बोलो ना? Cost per kg. अब मैं आपको उल्टा बोल रहा हूं. If 5 kgs is your normal loss, it is given, then you don't treat 39,000 as cost of 200 kgs, but you treat 39,000 as cost of 195 kgs. So, in that case, 39,000 divided by 195 will give you 200. Cost per kg is 200. That's how your cost per kg with normal loss will increase. So it is not going to be 195 per kg multiplied by quantity unsold, that is 95 units, but it's going to be 200 into 95 units unsold, right? And not 195 into 95 units unsold. So for normal loss, you don't have to pass any entry. But yes, because of normal loss, your cost per kg will increase. How the cost per kg will increase and how it will be adjusted at the time of valuation of consignment stock, I have discussed with you. बाकी कंसाइनमेंट चैप्टर में ओवरराइडिंग कमीशन का स्पेसिफिक इंस्ट्रक्शंस दिया होगा. डेल क्रेडिट कमीशन का स्पेसिफिक इंस्ट्रक्शंस दिया होगा. If you're not given del credit commission ka specific instructions, then you will always calculate on totals and then you will put a note. When for advance purpose consignor draws a bill on consignee, consignee accepts it and gives it back to consignor, and consignor goes and discounts the bill with the bank. That time do not treat discount charges as a consignment business expenditure. But if they say specifically that it should be debited to consignment account, and even debit discount charges at the time of discounting the bill, जो बैंक को हम charges पे करते हैं इंटरेस्ट के, वो भी consignment account में डेबिट. ओवर राइडिंग कमीशन होगा तो जो नॉर्मल सेल्स होगा उससे जो एक्स्ट्रा अमाउंट होगा उसके ऊपर आपको कैलकुलेट करना पड़ेगा. अकाउंटिंग एंट्रीज वुड रिमेन द सेम. One more very important thing, but in consignment chapter, if I don't discuss that, it is a crime. But if I discuss, it is like I'm really insulting you about del credit commission. If del credit commission is payable, then any loss due to bad debts will never affect consignor's books. It will affect only and only consignee. And if del credit commission is not payable, then of course it is a consignment business loss. So that much less amount consignor will collect from consignee. हाँ, मेरे हिसाब से मैंने सब पॉइंट्स कवर कर लिए कंसाइनमेंट के, अपार्ट फ्रॉम बेसिक प्रोफॉर्मा एंट्रीज एंड ऑल दैट. जितना डिटेल मैंने एडमिशन रिटायरमेंट डेट डिस्कस किया आपके साथ, उतना डिटेल में मैंने कंसाइनमेंट नहीं डिस्कस किया बिकॉज बेसिक अकाउंटिंग आई एम एक्सपेक्टिंग दैट यू नो. दैट्स ऑल. सी यू विद मोर चैप्टर्स. थैंक यू. Bye.